Next topic is content negotiation. So here we are going to talk about HTTP media types, and then we are going to see two annotations: produces annotation and consumes annotation. Produces annotation is used to produce a response format, and consumes annotation is used to consume incoming request content type. We'll talk about the concept of content handler, and then we are going to see how content type can be selected by the client. We have seen examples so far by using accept header, but we certainly want to support different ways of client selecting content type. So HTTP media type. So when we say HTTP media type, we are talking about formats. Okay. So here, it's very simple example. Request has requested the HTTP, the XML, application XML as the response format, and then response should return the data in the form of XML. Okay, so so media type. So client and server can send and receive data in multiple media types or formats, and so basically when you specify this format, basically it's a combination of format specification and parsing rules. So text HTML, JSON, XHTML, and RSS and RDF, and these XMLs are parsing rules. Basically, you are going to use the XML parser to parse this data. You can certainly create your own media type. So it could be application/foo and JSON, application/foo plus JSON and application. So basically, you can come up with your own media type if you want to. So in terms of HTTP headers regarding media type, how does a client specify acceptable response format? Through accept HTTP request header. So that's something we have seen some examples already. Now, how does a client specify its request format? So when the client is sending some data to the server, it can specify the type of it in using content type. So content type, if it is set as the application/JSON, then the data type that is being sent by the client is in the form of JSON. How does a server specify the response format? Same, the header content type could be used in the response header as a response header indicating the type of the response. Okay. So let's talk about the produces and consumes annotation. So produces annotation is used to specify media type or format of a response a resource can produce and send back to the client. So produces is used to specify the data format of the response. You can specify produces annotation at the class level or method level, or is also possible. The method level produces annotation will override the class level produces annotation. So let's say an example. In this example, we have a root resource called the Sun resource, and at the class level, we have text plain. What that means is that all methods in this class will produce text plain as a default. Okay. However, you can override this class level, the response format, by specifying produces annotation at the method level. So in this case, we have two methods. One is do get as plain text and do get as HTML. So this method, the first method, does not have its own produces. So it will produce text plain data format as specified in the class. Okay. However, the second method, do get as HTML, will produce text HTML data format because it has its own method level annotation of produces annotation. So this will override the class level annotation. So just assume in this class you have the method that produces text plain and text HTML. So in our simple in the client, so if the client specifies in the accept header, it says text plain, then it will select the method that produces text plain. So in this case, it will choose do get as plain text method here, because that's the one that will generate text plain. However, if the client set the accept header like this, so in this case, what it means is that text plain, the quality of it is going to be the 0.9. What that means is that I want to give 90% of weight to this guy. However, text HTML has 100%. What that means is that if it has a choice, it wants to receive text HTML because it has the 100% weight, and text plain has only 90% weight. Okay, so in this case, because there is a method that generate HTML, do get as HTML method will be in fact used to generate HTML. However, if we do not have this method, do get as HTML, if it has only this method, do get as plain text, then it will actually use this method, because if there is no method that can generate HTML, then it will take the next the preferred the choice, which is the text plain. Okay, all right. Now, if no method in the resource are able to produce the media type that is specified in the client, meaning there is no method that can handle the generation producing of text plain or text HTML, then it will receive the client will receive 406 not acceptable error. Does that make sense? Okay, all right, moving forward. Okay, server-side content negotiation. So on the server side, you can also specify, so let's take a look at an example of this one and this one. So, basically it has the produces notation, and it does XML and JSON. So it does have an equal weight, okay? So if the client wants XML, it will generate an XML. If the client wants JSON, it will generate JSON. However, if the client does not specify anything, then it will choose one of these two, and it will probably choose XML because that is actually before JSON. Okay, so let's just read this guy. Do get as XML or JSON method will get invoked if either of the media type, application XML or application JSON, are acceptable. So if this client specify XML and JSON as both the same weight, then either one will be actually chosen to generate it. Okay, if both are acceptable, then the former will be chosen because it occurs first. Okay, however, you can specify the weight on the server side as well. Okay, so if the client accepts both XML and JSON, instead of selecting the first one, I can actually specify this one I want to actually give 100% of weight, and this one I want to give 90% of weight. So in this case, if the client doesn't care between XML and JSON, in this case it will choose application JSON. In the second example, in the first example, it will choose XML as a response type. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's actually do exercise 1, 2, 3, 4. So here we are going to actually play around with the produces. Okay, so if you take a look at the produce, so the first one is producing HTML. The second one is we are going to produce either XML or JSON. Third, we could actually produce even image, and we could even produce PDF. Okay, all right. So we're going to actually try 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's take a look at the so let's import the project. Okay, so the first one is producing HTML. So let's stop the existing application. Let's try to run this guy. We are producing HTML. So Java application. Okay, so it's up and running. So let's see. We did that, and so it should be able to get the HTML. Oops. '80. So yeah, so produce text HTML, and it does return HTML. Okay. All right. So if you take a look at the code, you can certainly have the call, and we can specify the accept. In this case, if you see, this is what the browser set, right? And you can set yourself using call -h, and here text HTML is 100%, and application XHTML XML is again 100%. This one, the XML is 90%, and then image and web app is 100%, and then rest of it is going to be weight of 80%. Okay. All right. So because the application can produce HTML, it will provide HTML. So that is the code here. So again, this is the same code we have seen in the slide. So in this case, it will actually use this method to generate the response. So in this case, it's basically we hard coded the HTML response. And for your exercise, add another method called doGetAsXML, and produces the application XML format response data, which returns we're going to actually hard code XML data. Okay, and use the call command to access doGetAsXML method that you just added. So in this case, we're going to just specify application XML in the accept header. Okay, so exercise 2, we're going to actually produce XML or JSON response. So we have two different options. So let's actually run this guy. So stop it, and then produces XML or JSON. So run as Java application, main application. Okay, it's up and running. Localhost 8080. So here we are going to actually generate produces XML, and here we are going to actually produce JSON. So let's see, get XML. Yeah, so it does return user in the form of XML. Get XML2, this one is second user. Okay. So get second user, and this one is getting the user in the form of JSON. So get the data in the form of JSON, get JSON2, second user. Okay, so pretty straightforward. So this is what we have seen, and again, you can actually certainly use the call command to get the data. Okay. And if you take a look at the code here, we have this method is generating XML, and so we have two different ways of generating a response, and we're gonna actually see how we can actually generate a response later on in detail. Okay. For now, it's actually doing the same thing. Okay. So it's producing XML. This is also producing XML. Okay. Again, we're going to actually take a look at how you can create a response. Okay, so in this case, we are using a response object, and when you create a response object, you can actually specify the type yourself manually. Okay, and here, because you specify produces and because you just return user object, the container, the runtime will actually figure out how to convert this user object into XML. Okay, yeah. So for now, just assume this is the way that you can create the response. Okay, this is another way of creating a response, but just focus on produces. Same thing here, we are just generating JSON, and same thing with the JSON, but the code is pretty much the same, except here you specify media type yourself. Okay, so when you're using type method in the response object, you're basically setting content type to JSON. Okay, so again, we're going to actually see how we can generate the response in detail later on. Okay. All right, so for your exercise, create a student class with the name and age fields, and create a student resource that returns student data in both XML and JSON formats. Okay, and then you can use a call command to test it. Okay, so exercise 3 and 4, instead of actually XML and JSON, which are most popular data type, the media type, we're going to actually see how we can generate image response. Okay, so now, by the way, in order to do exercise 3 and 4, you have to actually copy some test image files from the hands-on lab zip file. So if you take a look at the hands-on lab zip file of this guy, the content negotiation. So take a look at the, go to the directory of the content negotiation here. There is a test files directory, so test files. Okay, so you have a Duke image, JPassion, JPG file, and PDF file. Okay, the code. I mean, you have a hard-coded the C test files in the code. Okay. So you have to actually, so if you see the code, we are basically assuming there is a duke.png file inside the C test files directory. This is for Windows. Okay, so make sure you copy the files into the directory that of your choice, and make sure you actually change the location of it in the code. Okay, so I'm gonna just copy this guy. So I'm gonna actually xcopy test files, and then in the C test files. Okay, oops. Oh, I didn't go to the this regular. Yeah, so I'm gonna go to okay. So then just xcopy to the root test files. Yeah, I already have that. Now I'm gonna run the application. So here produces image. So let's stop and then run as and Java application, and run as a main application. Okay, it's up and running, and then we're gonna go here. And localhost 8080. By the way, the reason localhost 8080 works is because I have an index.html file that contains the correct URL. Okay, so this is getting image, so it's going to get Duke image. Same thing with another image. Are they the same? Oh, looks like they are the same. Oh, okay, so either one should actually return PNG file. And if you take a look at the code, so we produces the PNG file, and basically we got the file object, and basically we are going to create a response builder object, and then from the file object, and then we just return response object. Again, we haven't really learned how to use the response builder and response object for now, so don't worry about this code for now. So just this is a code that will create response that contains the image. This is the same thing, and we basically return file object instead of the response object. Okay. All right. So again, we'll talk about how we can actually return the response in the following actual presentation. For your exercise, uncomment the following 2 lines of code, and we rerun the application and verify. The browser prompts the user to save the file. So if you have these 2 lines of code at this point is commented out, these 2 lines of code, if you uncomment and run it, then the browser will ask you to to save that file into some location. Okay, and then exercise 4 is produces. So producing PDF file is the same deal. So when you run the application, you click this link, and then you're going to actually see a PDF file. Okay, again, if you see the code, there is a PDF test PDF file, and you're producing application PDF. And here basically we are just using, again, pretty similar code to create a response object. For your exercise, you can try different PDF file that you have. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you guys about the 10 minutes to try exercise 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So we have learned how to use produces annotation. Basically, produces annotation is to produce data format of a response. Consumes annotation, on the other hand, is used to specify the media type of the data coming from the client, and basically indicating what media type of representations a resource can consume. Just like a produces, it can be applied at both class and method level, and the method level override the class level consumes annotation. So container is responsible for ensuring the method invoked is capable of consuming the media type of the HTTP request body. Okay, so basically that is specified by the content type of the request header, right? So content type specifies, maybe XML and JSON, and then if there is no method that can handle the content type that is coming from the client, then JXRS runtime will respond back with 415 unsupported media type. Okay, which means there is no resource, meaning there is no method in a class that can read the content type that is coming from the client. So let's see an example here. So we have a consume message method, which is going to handle post method. Yeah, by the way, consumes is supposed to be used only for post and put, right? Because it's dealing with the data that is coming from the client. So it doesn't, it's not relevant to the get get method. It's only relevant to post and put. Okay. So here there is a data coming from the client because it's a post request. And then this method is annotated with the consumes. What that means is that this method can actually read only text plain data type. What that means is that the content type of the client should be text plain. Okay. Otherwise, if there is no method that can handle this text plain, whatever data type that is coming from the client, then it's going to be 415 error. Okay, unsupported media type. Okay, all right. So we're going to actually play around with that in exercise 5. So in exercise 5, we are going to actually play around with consume as well. Oops, sorry. Go to the so this is exercise 5. Let me just increase the font size. Okay. Okay, so here we're gonna run the produces and consumes XML and JSON. So basically, this the service should be able to consume. Yes, I think it's gonna actually produces and consume in both direction. Okay. Now, so this is an example where we are going to in fact have a client application as well. So you can actually run the server application, Spring REST JXRS format produces, consumes XML and JSON server application, and then we should be able to run the client application as well, Spring REST JXRS format produces and consumes XML, JSON, and client. Okay, and this is what you are going to receive. Okay, so here client will try to create a new customer. And then it is going to get the customer data, newly created customer data of this guy in XML format and also in JSON format. Okay, and you can certainly actually access the newly created customer using call command. And here we specify application XML. It wants to receive in the form of XML, and this is the URL of newly created the customer. Okay, this one we are trying to receive it in the form of JSON. Okay, so if you take a look at the code, so I'm going to just use the this code here. Create customer. So this method is actually handling creation of a brand new customer. Okay, because it's a post method. And then it says it can either take the data coming from the client either in the form of XML or JSON. Okay. And so here, don't worry about this code that much. Basically, we are just creating the new customer. And here, this is produces. So we are actually producing either XML and JSON. So this is a get handler. We have another get handler. Now, client code. We haven't learned how to write the client code yet. Okay. So basically, you create the client object from the client builder. We create the customer object, and we are going to actually set the target with the resource URL of this guy, right? And then we are going to create the entity from a new custom object that we just created. Okay, we're going to actually spend some time, on this client APIs in detail later on. So if you don't understand this code that much, don't worry about it. Okay, so basically creating a new customer, and then we are just getting the newly created customer data in the form of XML and JSON. That's basically what it does. Okay, and add a new post method for creation operation that consumes XML request data and returns newly created customer data in JSON format in the message body. So the method returns 201 status, and set location field of the newly created customer, and then set the message body with the customer data in JSON format. Yeah, so basically you can just use the existing code, and this is basically what you can do. Okay, you can change the client code accordingly. So if you're not comfortable with actually client code at this point, that's perfectly fine. Okay, all right, so let's actually run this code. So I'm gonna stop, and we are going to, so this is the client server application. So I'm gonna run the server application, run as Java application. You can certainly actually play around with the call and the postman if you want to, instead of using client application. So I'm gonna actually run the application now. Okay, so it's up and running, and now if I run the client application, run as Java application, and the main client, so it does create the new create customer, and the location field that is actually returned is this guy, and then you are receiving it in the form of XML and JSON, right? So if I actually have this guy in the form of the JSON, so call H and accept an application JSON, and then if I provide URL, then it should actually return newly created customer in the form of JSON. If I try to get in the form of XML, then it should return in the form of XML. Okay, all right, so that is basically what it does. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys maybe about 5 to 7 minutes to try this exercise. Content handler. So what is content handler? So content handler is responsible for marshalling and unmarshalling the message body to and from Java object. Okay, so Jonathan was asking about the message body writer and message body reader, and that's basically content handler. Okay. JAX-RS runtime provides a built-in content handlers for basic type, for string, char array, byte array, and things like that. JAX-RS also provide built-in content handler for XML. It's actually using JAX-B data binder underneath. Okay, and we're going to actually see how we can actually do these things later on using JAX-B annotation. Now, content handler for JSON is provided by third-party library. So it's not part of the JAX-RS runtime. So you have to have the Jackson or Moxie dependency. Okay. So Jackson is actually what we are just using internally. So when you are in fact in Spring application, when you add Jersey, the starter, it automatically adds a Jackson dependency for you. Okay. You can certainly create a custom content handler, and then you can plug in. So basically, you could actually create your own the message body writer and message body reader, and then you can plug in if you want to. Okay, content type by content type selection by client. So the client can specify the content it wants by using accept header. So that's something that we have play around, right? But that's not always convenient. The client wants to specify the content type that it wants to receive its data. The content type, meaning the format of the response data, by using URL extension or request parameter. So that's a lot more flexible than changing accept header. So we're going to actually see all these three schemes. So URL extension example. So if a client wants to receive the data in the form of XML, the client should be able to say just a .xml or .json. Okay. So in that case, the server application could be set like this. The path will have a resource ID.xml, and then resource ID will be captured as a path param, and then we are going to actually use the resource ID to get the user object, and then we are going to send the XML data back. Okay, and if the .json is used, then again we are going to create the JSON response. Okay, so this is one way the server application can handle extension, the media type extension. Or you could actually have a single method. In our case, you have a different method for different data type. One for XML, one for JSON, maybe one for PDF, things like that. Instead, we could have a single method that can actually receive resource ID as well as a type as a variable. Okay. And then we'll have some switch statement or if statement to respond with the proper response format. Okay, so this is another way of actually implementing it. And the client might want to actually use a request parameter as a way of indicating the response data format. So in this case, question mark format equal XML, question mark format equal JSON. So it will return JSON data and it will return XML data. So in this case, we need to actually use a query param with a format request parameter key value, and then this XML or JSON will be captured as a format, and then we are going to return proper data type. Okay, so yes, just another way of actually implementing producing proper data format. Okay, so that is the exercise 6, 7, and 8 and 9, and that is the end of the this particular presentation. So this is a case that we have accept header server and accept header client. Okay, so let's actually run it. So once you run it, so once you run the server application, you certainly should be able to use the curl command, right? Okay, so here is using XML as the desired response format, JSON as the desired response format, PDF as the so in this case, it should actually return 4.6 not acceptable. Okay, because there is no server side method that can handle consume produce the PDF format. So it should actually return 4.6. Okay, all right, so let's actually run that guy. So accept header server, stop it, and accept header server. So here we are going to actually run this application, run as and Java application. Okay, so up and running. So we're going to actually try we're going to try this guy first. So it should return JSON. Okay, I'm going to just start here. Yeah, so it returned JSON, and if I try to say the PDF or PNG or something like that, it should return, it doesn't actually return 4.6. Let's see, PDF. Yeah, expect the 4.6, but it does not return nothing. That's actually interesting. Yeah, so I have to actually figure out why this is not actually returning 4, 6. Instead it just returns nothing. That's not good. Okay, let's see whether this one, yeah, so the first one, yeah, this one worked. This one, yeah, PNG, PDF, yeah. So okay, so I'm gonna actually take a look, why the response at this point is not the same as this guy. You can certainly run the client application, and so client application here, we're gonna actually run accept header client, run as Java application main class. Okay, so output from the server in the XML, so it returns in the form of XML, and this one is actually returned the JSON. Yeah, so in this case, it returns 4.6. Okay, so caught error, and the exception is HTTP 4.6 not acceptable response is actually returned. Okay, so when I use the client application, it certainly seems to be actually working fine. Yeah, so I don't know what the deal with this guy. All right, let's actually see the Postman. So I'm going to use where did I have Postman? I'm gonna just close this guy. Oh, okay, so Postman, what is my Postman? Oh, I lost my Postman. Okay, so I'm gonna just Postman. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, here we go. It doesn't actually. Oh, here we go. Okay, so the URL is supposed to be so the one, yeah, so this one should be resources users 1, and then we want to actually receive, like we're gonna set the accept header. And header, so here we are going to, so yeah, I don't need the content type, and here I'm going to set yeah, so let's actually try to see the JSON first, and that should work, right? So send it, and I got the data in the form of JSON. Now I am going to receive it with PDF, and then send, and yeah, so I have received the 4.6 not acceptable status. Okay, so Postman works fine. It's just the call command somehow. Oh, I did not actually specify I guess that's why. All right, so let's actually have all this. Yeah, so that's the reason. Okay, so now I should actually see 4.6. Okay, so I missed this I option. Okay, that is the exercise 6. Okay, here we are basically we have a get resource method. And then we are receiving resource ID as the variable, and then we basically get the accept headers. Okay, and then if accept header is null or the size is 0, then we are going to just return XML as a default. And then we are going to actually go through some accept headers, and we are basically checking if the relative quality factor is 0, then we're going to actually stop it because we don't want to actually support it. If acceptor is set to XML, then send back XML. Okay. Otherwise, send back 4.6. Right. And this is a client code. So in client code, you can specify the accept header by using request method. Okay. Again, we're going to actually learn this client API in detail later on. Okay, so this is the case that we are asking for the XML. This is how we can ask for the JSON, and this is, basically we are asking for form on URL encoded type, and obviously it should return 4.6. Okay, because there is no service that can handle this accept header request. Okay, for your own exercise, add a method that handles a request that has application JSON in the accept header, and add the code, the add code in the client accordingly. Okay. Yeah, as long as you actually run the application and it makes sense to you, that should be fine. Exercise 7. So this is the case that the client application should be able to specify XML and JSON and whatever format as an extension. Okay, so let's actually run that extension application. So stop it, and so this is the case, a URL extension. So I'm gonna run this guy, run as Java application, main application. Okay, it's up and running. So here, and the localhost 8080. Okay, so this one should return XML, right? And this one should return JSON. However, if I try to use XYZ format, then it should return 44 because there is no resource that can handle this extension. Okay, so that makes sense. So that is the exercise 7. Okay, we just did that. And you can certainly try with the XYZ. So in this case, if I want to see the response status, then I should say -i, and if I run this code command, again should return 44. Okay, so that's 44. Okay, so that is basically the case that we are receiving. We have a the individual method that can handle individual extension. Okay. All right. So add a method that can handle a request with the resource ID XML or JSON. So it should be able to handle both XML and JSON. And create a sub-resource locator which returns a sub-resource that returns XML in the morning and returns a sub-resource that can handle that returns JSON in the afternoon. Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit artificial exercise, but you got the point. This is the case that we are handling the data type selection via request parameter. Okay, so in this case, the client will send in the form of request parameters, right? Okay, so it should work pretty much the same. Okay, except so the except is connected using request parameter. So let's just run that guy, and so. What is the request parameter? Yeah, this is the one, and run as Java application main. Okay, and then here, close this guy. Okay. Localhost 8080. So this time we are using this request parameter format XML. So XML, and then JSON, and here is 44. Okay. All right. So that is expected behavior. Okay. And exercise 9 is we are basically using a single method. It's another way of So this time we are just capturing the type as the variable as well. Okay. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys about the 12 minutes to finish up these exercises. Okay, and then we're going to actually move on to response handling. I would say response handling is probably the most important presentation on today. Okay. Okay, so let's